All right, quick video. I'm going to redo this because I just realized I gave the wrong measurements the first time around. So I'll make sure I got it right. See if I can shorten it up to 5 minutes. Been doing mods on this if you've been following the channel. K-Tech Razor R Lite, stock fork and internals, but 7-weight bell rate fork oil, ECU flash, K&N, or I think it's a BMC filter, lower bar, Pilot Road 5s. It's been a great handling bike, much improved over stock, but I could tell it still wasn't quite right. So I went over to GMD CompuTrack up in Fairburn, in Georgia, to get the suspension set up professionally. So Tony, who's from Australia, 13 years as a road racer, grew up racing on Phillip Island and worked for Race Tech, test ride, all kinds of stuff, really good credentials, really understands suspension and stuff like that. So he helped me get this dialed in. And the first thing we would notice was that 7-weight oil was the right weight, but I had the compression and rebound up all the way because I felt like, it should be stiff to prevent fork dive. And he pushed on it once, was like, yeah, we're not riding like that. We're changing that. So we left these 6 turns of preload. So back out the preload all the way and go in 6 turns. And then we ended up settling on 5 clicks out on the rebound. So 6 turns in on preload, 5 clicks out on rebound, and then 4 clicks out on compression. And you can see I still have plenty of travel on the fork, although I haven't had it to the mountains. But I was bouncing on it good and hitting the brakes hard on the way home. That gave me my 40-ish mils of sag in the front, plenty of fork travel. Really plush. Like, it's still firm because the fork and the oil and stuff like that. I'm sorry, the spring and the oil and everything. But backing out the compression and the rebound, it's just supple now. And so he was explaining, when you're going over small bumps, obviously you take a big hit, the whole bike's going to move. But he said, you're going over all these little bumps and imperfections in the road. Your bar should basically be stopped, just going over the bumps. Bar should be just smooth, steady. It's the wheel that should be going up and down without pitching the bike up and down. And before it was pitching the bike up and down a little bit. And so in the turns, it would kind of make it feel a little squirrely. And I just figured, well, it's a big, heavy bike. It's not really a sport bike in a lot of ways. It's not this. It's not that, And so I would just ride around it. But part of me was like, I don't know if it's supposed to feel like that. So I took it in, and sure enough. The other thing we did was, this is the K-Tech Razor R Lite, sprung for 200 to 250 pound rider, which I am. We're 3 clicks out on rebound. Compression is sort of pre-programmed in with the valve stack inside, so you can't adjust that, but didn't really need it. We ended up taking out a turn of the preload. I had it set for 34 millimeters of sag. We brought it out to 38. And that, because I had no static sag. I had rider sag, but he's like, with no static sag, you're going down the road, you hit the front brakes, and the back end's going to lighten up, and it's like, gunk, it's going to top out real easy. So we needed to go put in more sag than the 30, that I would put on something like this. So we settled on 38, and everything's balanced. It's plush. It's still firm, but it's so much more supple, and it's very fluid. The front feels very fluid now. It takes very little effort. There's no stiction. I use Dave Moss's doing the grease seals, grease ring, which you don't need. You need a little flat tip screwdriver and some grease. You don't have to take the forks off. Just search for it. You'll find it on YouTube. But man, softening it up a little bit. Really just has it soaking up the bumps. It's not pitching me around. It's almost like counterintuitive, unless you really know this stuff. And I know enough to be dangerous, but it's you feel, well, I need stiff to hold the bike up and take the hits and stuff. And when you have your compression and rebound and stuff dialed up too much, yeah, it's firm, but those hits then are pitching the bike back. It's pushing the bike back instead of just absorbing it and the bike basically staying, relatively level. It's causing it to pop a little bit when you hit that bump. So now it doesn't do that. It's very plush. It doesn't take much effort to push the forks down. I mean, it takes the weight because of the spring, but as far as getting it moving, there's no stiction. It's just supple. Very, very little inputs make it move nice and flush, nice and fluid. It's actually really helped. So if you're my weight and you've got this bike, You want to set it up with a set, get you a baseline that, if you're a similar rider to me and you're a similar weight, K-Tech Razor R Lite, 200 to 250 pound spring. I mean, we could take a measurement, maybe I'll put it in the description, but you can probably pause the video right here and you can just count the rings in the turns there, how many threads, and get an idea of where it is. But set it for 38 mils of sag in the back, which is only a couple mils off what Dale Walker was recommending. And maybe with a different shock, I would go to the 35 he recommended. And then in the front, 4 clicks out on compression, 5 clicks out from fully seated on rebound, and 6 turns in on preload. And that's with the Bel-Ray 7-weight oil. So it's a good setup. It feels awesome. It felt good before, way better than stock, but not quite up to the level of what I was getting out of these. But man, does it feel good now. So a lot more comfortable, a lot more compliant, while still being firm and let me dive into turns and do all my normal silliness. So those are my suspension settings. If you're local, try out GMD CompuTrack. They're not giving me anything. I mean, it was worth it, $80. I tipped the guy $20 for doing a great job. He spent an hour with me, which didn't take him an hour to dial this in because I wasn't that far off. I had it about 70% of where it needed to be. But the last 30% made a difference. But he spent an hour talking to me, explaining what he was doing and why it's important and what to look for. And it was a good learning experience. So worth every penny. But if you got that bike and you're my weight, give those mods and those settings a try.